All right, what is going on, everybody? AJ Reilly with the giggly Eric Vincent tonight
Leave me alone, man.
on your favorite Detroit sports show, Beyond the Box, with your two favorite hosts. We hung out with you all night on Thursday for the first round of the NFL draft. We had a great live show with you last night on Monday night, talking about the message that Brad Holmes sent to everybody
Oh, yeah.
that the Lions are here to win. Which ain't nothing to laugh at, Eric.
No laughing matter at all.
So tonight, what we need to do is we need to talk about these rookies, specifically the first 5 picks. We need to talk about Jahmyr Gibbs. We need to talk about Jack Campbell, Sam LaPorta, Brian Branch, and Hendon Hooker. What are their expectations for 2023? And then we're going to snowball that into what are the Detroit Lions' expectations now for 2023. All that and more is coming to you on your favorite Detroit sports show, Beyond the Box. Okay, Eric, let's jump into it. Brad Holmes shocked the world on Thursday night when he picked Jahmyr Gibbs, 12th overall, a running back out of Alabama, their leading receiver last year, a dynamic playmaker in space, and then doubled down on it at pick 18 and selected the best linebacker in the draft, one of the more athletic linebackers that you're going to see in Jack Campbell.
Stud.
And had a very interesting first round. Then, day 2, at pick 34, he starts the run on tight ends and takes Sam LaPorta out of, you guessed it, Iowa, because apparently he loves corn-fed boys.
Oh, yeah.
And then he gets Brian Branch, who fell and maybe is the best value of the entire draft.
Loves Alabama.
And then rounded out the third round with a pick of Hendon Hooker, which we all said was a great pick. So let's talk about these 5 guys. Coming into 2023, what are their expectations? And I guess we could start with the first 2, Gibbs and Campbell. Let's go round by round. Gibbs and Campbell, what are their expectations this season?
They're not low, and I don't think that should be a shock to them. I think Gibbs is coming in knowing his situation. I think he knows he's coming in replacing Jamal Williams, replacing DeAndre Swift. Swift didn't do a ton.
He's not replacing Jamal Williams. He's replacing DeAndre Swift.
Okay, fine. He's replacing the core
Mo
from
Ibrahim
last season.
is replacing Jamal
Williams. They're replacing the core from last season.
Yeah.
And we saw a lot of success from them. They were spotty throughout some games, but we're expecting these two, whether it's Montgomery and Gibbs, we're expecting them to be a very complimentary backfield for the next several years. I believe he's very, very explosive. We see the home run ability dynamic, especially when those holes open up for him. We know that he's unbelievable in pass catching situations. With the creativity of a Ben Johnson, we'll see him split out a whole lot and, they'll do a whole lot of razzle-dazzle type things that defenses don't prepare for. And I think the Lions do a good job of catching teams off guard with that. I think he's well aware that his expectations are pretty high at this moment right now. I'll wait for Jack Campbell. I want to hear you give your take on Gibbs first. But yeah, I think the expectation for them is to be one of the more dominant run games in the NFC, and I think they know that.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, though. Last year, when you had DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams as your backfield, there were games that they went silent.
Yep.
Were not complimentary to Jared Goff at all. And those were a lot of the games that the Lions lost. Mm-hmm. And I think when you add a guy like Montgomery, who can be a 3-down back between the tackles kind of runner, and then you also add in the dynamic playmaking ability of a Gibbs, who by some accounts may have been the best athlete in the draft. One of the...
Could argue.
Maybe a 1A, 1B to Bijan Robinson as far as running back prospects went.
Anthony Richardson too, yeah.
Yeah, there's no doubt that the fall off should not occur as often. Are they going to have bad games? Yes, they're going to have bad games. But when you're talking about a 1-2 punch that brings the type of punch that they have, You expect more consistency than we saw last season. Listen, Jamal got a ton of praise last year. 17 touchdowns. Great. He's set the franchise record. But how many of those touchdowns were over 2 yards? Not many of them.
Not a lot, no.
I think I can remember 2. I could be wrong on that number. It's not a fact, but like he had a long run against Seattle. I remember that because I was there.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it was all goal line touches.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention when Swift is down and Jamal Williams was your option out of the backfield, oftentimes that was meant with drops.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're talking about bringing in Gibbs, who was Alabama's leading receiver last year, let's not let that fact go unnoticed.
Mm-hmm.
The reason Bryce Young had the year that he had was much attributed to Jahmyr Gibbs.
Right.
And that can't go overlooked as well. And so I think that this remaking of the running back room, getting rid of DeAndre Swift and sending him to Philly, getting rid of Jamal Williams and not signing him to an extension, I think just signals kind of what we talked about last night. Brad Holmes is ready to win, and he's ready to win right now. That may not bode well for the future 4 or 5 years down the road, but for the next 2 to 3 years, it's at least going to be really exciting. And oh, by the way, we also addressed the defense in the first round with the best linebacking prospect in the draft. So we can't say that they didn't address need because linebacker, after signing Anzalone, was a need. And they addressed it. And I love Jack Campbell.
I think this is my favorite pick of the draft. This went from being what I was skeptical about, but I'm really high on Jack Campbell. I love the dynamic he brings. I don't know. I brought this up on the broadcast during the draft. Like, I had a worry about them just playing 2 linebackers. There were times, even in goal line sets, where they played 3 at a time. So they can still spread those out, maybe take a lineman out and then put a linebacker in to like offset for that. But either way, even if they don't, I think Campbell makes up a lot of the deficiencies that we may have saw with Rodriguez or with Anzalone. I don't think there's much to worry about in terms of his coverage skills. He's a sure tackler. He's very athletic, very explosive on blitzes. And I think he has, honestly, I think he is a very high chance to be a face of this defense. Like, I think Campbell has all the makings of being a very explosive player. We talked about it on the draft as well. His floor, we saw from scouts saying, could be a Leighton Vander Esch from the Cowboys, and he possibly could have a ceiling of Luke Kuechly. That says enough right there. And that's not, I don't think, an exaggeration. If you watch how he plays, it's not like, I don't think they're gassing that up. Like, Campbell plays with that fire. He plays, it's such a funny term, but he really does play like a Dan Campbell guy. That high energy, very physical, is going to give it 100% each snap. And I think he fits perfect with what this defense is trying to do. I love this Jack Campbell acquisition.
What's the big knock on Malcolm Rodriguez?
His coverage skills.
His size.
That too, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the big knock on Alex Anzalone?
I'll let you
My
tell
least
it.
favorite line.
I'll let you tell it.
It's his coverage skills.
Yes.
What does Jack Campbell have? He has size.
And coverage
And a
skills.
92.9 coverage grade from PFF.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Check.
By the way, you want to know how much I dislike Thor Anzalone?
Please tell me.
Captain America, baby.
Troll. What a troll. You knew what you were doing.
I had to. I was like, man, okay, whatever. But no, so I think Campbell is, like you said, I mean, did you even watch the call that they made to him? The first thing Dad Campbell says to him is, "Hey, I like your last name." Like, okay, welcome to Detroit, another Campbell. But listen, all joking aside, Jack Campbell is, I think, a perfect player for the Detroit Lions.
Yep.
No doubt about it. You're going to argue 18 was too high to take a linebacker, sure. And yes, Patrick Queen, who was a first-round linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens, hasn't had his fifth-year option picked up. I understand all of that and positional value. I get that. But when the guy's there to be had, they went and got the guy to be had.
Yep.
And he's a perfect fit for the Detroit Lions, and I think that I hope he's much more Luke Kuechly, obviously, than Leighton Vander Esch, but even Leighton Vander Esch is not terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, he's
So,
serviceable. He's a face for the Cowboy defense.
We'll go with it. We move then to the second round. They draft at 34 Sam LaPorta.
Yep.
And then I think it was 48. They grab Brian Branch, the kind of Swiss Army knife secondary player from Alabama. Maybe the steal of the entire draft.
Maybe, yep.
How do you feel about them going tight end that early? And what are your thoughts on Branch?
It worried me a little bit just because I think, as we've talked about all offseason, a lot of the emphasis we wanted to see was on defense. But tight end was a need. Tight end was a position where I think it can tip the dynamic of their offense. And, I mean, we're talking about, the dynamic between Dan Campbell. Again, he's a former tight end, and they have treated tight end like it's an irrelevant position on their roster. So bringing in LaPorta at this point, where I think he could start day one, he's a perfect fit for what they need. He should, absolutely. 6'5", 240, 250, if I'm not mistaken. Very, very good pass catcher. And very everybody quick. Having TJ Hockenson PTSD, turn on the tape. They're not even close to the same.
I'm one.
You're one of them? They're not even close to the same player.
Very hesitant. Because I was like, another tight end from Iowa? That didn't work out so well for us.
It's crazy that was the history to it. But if you watch them play, they're not even close to the same. Like, Hawkinson's a guy where if you scheme him open, he can run and create some yardage off of that. LaPorta's very good at catching passes in traffic, breaking tackles, running after catch, and being a matchup nightmare. We hear that term a lot, especially back from the Calvin Johnson days. You need to have at least one matchup nightmare on your roster, and I think this guy is it. In the red zone, I think he's going to be a terror. He's not a great run blocker at this moment, but with his effort...
You don't need him to necessarily be a great run blocker because you have James Mitchell.
James Mitchell, yes. And you're lining up to two of the best tackles in the NFC. I think they're in good position to where he doesn't have to be relied on as a primary unbelievable blocker. But I love his fit with this offense. He's going to be a significant upgrade.
So these three players that we talked about, Gibbs, Campbell, and LaPorta, expectations for them are immediate contributions to the offense and day one starters.
Yes. Yep, agreed.
Brian Branch is kind of in a packed secondary room.
Yeah.
But he is a hybrid kind of safety that covers like a corner, not afraid to tackle. A lot of comps to Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah.
What do we expect from him day one?
I'm not expecting a ton right away, to be fair. I think they're going to use him a lot as a depth guy. You're not, unless he is just killing in practice, it would be very troubling to see him start as your nickel over a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson right away. That would worry me.
We don't know if Emmanuel Mosley is going to be ready for the start of the season, though.
Okay, then that helps. If that's the case, if he's still recovering, again, that's why they went so heavy on adding as many bodies as they did. And if that's the case, and if Branch has to play right away, I don't have a lot of worries. Again, it's not an easy, transition from from college to the NFL as a DB, but given his skill set as a great tackler, very good coverage guy, I don't have any worries about how he's going to transition. Like, I think he's in a perfect situation with the veterans around him where CJ Gardner-Johnson has said, hey, put it on me. I want to help these young guys. I want to cover everybody and make sure everything is on point with this defense. I think he's going to be a great learning influence for him, and this is a perfect fit for Branch. And I cannot believe he fell as low as he did. Like, I'm still shocked by that. Great fit, great pickup.
Yeah, and like our secondary, somebody mentioned it last night on the live. They said, on paper, has there been a better Detroit Lions secondary?
No.
And it's really hard to – here's another thing, too, that we really haven't mentioned. We don't know when Tracy Walker is going to be back.
Right.
So could you have a back two of Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch to start the season? Very, very possible, right? Immediate impact. A guy that's going to be able to fill a lot of holes and be very versatile and give Aaron Glenn a ton of different options for looks, which is going to be a lot of fun, specifically as this team tries to, become that top 20, top 15 defense in the league. And if they are anywhere top 20 or above in the league,
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at a team that is no doubt one of the favorites in the NFC.
Because
the offense we know is going to be top 5. I mean, there's barring some tragic injury, for sure, that always has to be the caveat. But this offense is really good, and it's going to be really good, and it's going to be very dynamic, and it's going to create, like you said, even without J-Mo those first 6 games, you're still going to be able to create a lot of havoc when it comes to matchups.
Yep.
With LaPorta, with Gibbs, with Montgomery, with Amon-Ra, with Josh Reynolds and Marvin Jones and Antoine Green, who has a great opportunity like we talked about.
Yes.
It just sets up for a lot of excitement. Now listen, we can be as excited as we want. Let the future worry about the future. That's future Detroit Lions fans' problems. Okay? All we're concerned about is 2023, 2024. That's all that matters right now.
Well, that makes it hard for this next pick then, because
it does a little bit. It does a little bit, but this next pick in Hendon Hooker kind of helps you kick the can down the road a little bit farther if he solidifies himself. So expectations for Hendon Hooker in 2023 are nil. Yes. There's no expectations.
Agreed.
The only thing I care about Hendon Hooker is your knee healthy and have you learned the playbook?
Mm-hmm.
I do not care if you step foot on the field. In fact, I don't even want you to step foot on the field at all. Even if it's to take a snap in victory formation, no. I think he should be holding a clipboard. I don't think his helmet should even be brought out of his locker. And he is just there to learn. Be a sponge, as he told the media.
That's what he said he'd do, yep.
And I think that he will be. And I think that he has the potential to become a really decent starter. He's not going to be an all-world player.
No.
But could he be a quarterback on a championship-level team eventually? Maybe. And at worst, he's going to be a really solid backup. He's going to become, at worst, Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, I can see. I actually can see that. I see some of the effects of their games. And you just said it. You said it's important to live in the now for Lions fans. Man, I'm struggling with that. Because I love what this dude brings. And I like that Brad Holmes was thinking towards the future as well in some of these positions. I talked about them being in positions where they could do a drafted stash. He's the most favorable person that you could do it for. If it was an Anthony Richardson, there could have been some clamoring to play him early off the first couple Goff interceptions. No matter what Goff does, nobody's going to be in the crowd saying, son fell. No disrespect if you're watching. But the point is, nobody's going to be checking for him. Hendon Hooker has all the time.
And even if he is watching, it's true.
It's true. It's true. You know we're right. Come on now.
Yes.
He's in a position, I think, like I said on the live, more favorable than any other rookie. I think the other guys ahead of him are going to be starting right away. They have a lot more pressure, and the Titans situation is just a horrible situation all around. But yes, he's going to do exactly what you said. He's going to be taking that time to learn. He's going to be taking that time to talk to Dan Campbell, learn the flow of the offense, learn the speed of the game. And in 2024, maybe even next year, I mean, it could be a long, long wait until we see him. But if the rewards of a winning team are the reason why, then I'm all for it. But I agree with you on what his floor and his ceiling could be for this team.
So it's time to transition then.
Okay.
We've talked about the rookies.
Mm-hmm.
Now and listen, we're going to be talking Lions until the season starts. There's no doubt about that. But there are other sports in Detroit that Beyond the Box will be talking about as well. Specifically the Tigers, if they continue to have the limited amount of success that they are having right now. But for right now, it's all Lions because they're the best team in Detroit. Who would have ever thought we'd have said that?
Crazy. Insanity.
And there's one man responsible for that, and that's Brad Holmes, to be very frank. Regardless of any criticism you want to give him for the way that this draft went down, he has taken this team, as I said last night, and it's been a lot like raising the Titanic from the ocean floor, to steal a metaphor from an article that I read, which is true. For 2023 in the Detroit Lions, with what they have added, and I just read a tweet that said that they have now, with their draft picks and all of that, about $19 million still in cap space. Okay, which is not insignificant. Doesn't mean that they'll necessarily spend it either. But where they drafted and the slot values that they drafted at, they'll have roughly about $19 million left. For this team heading into 2023, the expectations have never been higher. What are those expectations? And why is it the NFC Championship game? I'm just kidding.
You're not far off, because I'll be totally honest with you, man. If the Lions, again, we're expecting winning as the expectation, but it's not just winning. It's not just wild card. It's not being second in the division and sneaking in the back off of another 9-8, 10-6 record. That's not enough. I'm expecting the division to be the floor of what they do. Like, I'm expecting domination of the division. I'm expecting them to be one of those dark horse teams out the NFC. I'm not going to pin on NFC Championship yet, but as of right now, you're 100% right. The expectations for this team have not been as high as I've ever experienced. Back to the Caldwell days, back to with Stafford and Megatron, or where they had, the team with Sue and, Stephen Tulloch, like Glover Quinn. Like, this is even higher than that, I believe, at this point, because not only are they expected to win this year, it's for the next few years coming. That's what you've set yourself up for. So
I have a bone to pick with
winning
you.
With me.
Because I said the division was kind of the floor a few weeks ago, and you go, oh, what if they sneak into the playoffs?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
You remember that, right?
I changed my mind. I'm backtracking. I'm flipping it. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Hey, we talked about growth on the live. Here's some more growth. AJ was right, guys.
There we go. That's what I was looking for. Thank you very much.
AJ was right.
Give me my flowers when I deserve them. Now, the division is theirs for the taking. And it had, listen, the way that their schedule sets up, and the way that Brad Holmes went about this draft, we said it last night on the live. He made a very clear statement. Our time is now. Our time is right this second to win. And there's a reason for that. The NFC is not great.
No.
You have a great opportunity to take advantage of a very weak NFC.
Mm-hmm.
This is the time. So when we talk about expectations for this team, there's nothing wrong with being a fan and putting your expectations higher than they've ever been. Now, I will caution you, because unmet expectations are the place that disappointment grows the most.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to place expectations on them and hold them accountable. And there's a reason why we can hold them accountable, because of this draft that they just had. They did not draft with the depth chart. They did not necessarily draft for what everybody considered to be positional need. They drafted to win now. Mm-hmm. And so if they don't win, then it's a failure.
Totally agree.
And if they do not win division, I would say it's a failure. Yeah, sneaking into the playoffs would be great. But if you do not host a playoff game within the next 2 years,
failure,
then you have failed.
For sure.
And if you do not have a playoff win, your first playoff win in over 30 years, in the next 2 years, then you have failed.
Yep.
And I'm going to take it even a step farther. If you do not at least make the Super Bowl within the next 2 to 3 years, it has been a failure. Because if you have signaled to this fan base that you are ready to win now based on the way that you drafted over this last weekend, and you do not deliver on that expectation, then you have by definition failed.
Whew, man, you're not wrong though, man. I agree with a whole lot of what you're saying. Again, I'm not 100% on board with the whole path that they took for this draft. Again, there were some things I wish they would have did, but I'm okay with them picking the guys that they like. Even with the route that they took, this is still a path to what you said. Super Bowl, playoff wins, winning your division. Minimum. Like those have to be the steps from the reverse order. It can't just be, like you said, if if they had a crap draft and they maybe get 2 guys that I liked, then sneaking into the division, sneaking into a wild card is maybe acceptable. But at this point, with what they've done, again, I told you before the draft that their rebuild is over. They're trying to make win now moves. Time to win these games right
That's
now.
what they signaled.
That's what they've said. That's what they've signaled. So now has to be the point where they start making it happen. Yeah, it's big wins or nothing at this point.
Yeah, and anything less than that is going to be a failure. And you no longer have the excuse of injury. You no longer have the excuse of injury. You no longer have the excuse of positional need or holes on the roster or inexperience.
Out the window.
The time's now. And the window is 2 to 3 years max.
Yep.
Because that's about the length of all of the contracts that you will have coming due. From Penei Sewell to Aiden Hutchinson to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jared Goff's going to be up in 2 years. It's 2 to 3 years. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens after those 3 years and how they try to sustain their success.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have not really built in a way that can sustain it.
Facts. So,
either deliver or be ready to admit that you failed.
Because that's what it is.
That's
Sitting in that NFL purgatory is not. We're right there.
No
we're
more.
Close just next year, a couple pieces. No. It has to be right now. You're playing the NFC South, which is garbage. Your division is garbage at this point. This has to be the stepping stone where they do things we haven't seen them do. Sadly, I can't believe we see them win a division title in how long. That has to change starting this season. It has to.
And it should be exciting. Listen, I don't want to be like, you have to, like, and be negative, right? Because this is a positive thing. Mm-hmm. In my lifetime, I can't remember going into a Lions season going, we're the favorites.
Mm-hmm.
We're the favorites in the division. We're the 4th best odds to win the NFC. I can't remember a time because there hasn't been a time. So now is the time.
Real quick, which rookie do you think has this? We'll make this fast. Which rookie do you think has the most pressure in order to help them get to that point?
Jahmyr Gibbs, because of where he was drafted.
Yep. I was hoping that was supposed to be quick. I wasn't going to say nobody else. It has to be him. Like, I'm not worried about Campbell's transition. LaPorta's a hybrid tight end, like where it's a luxury position. It's Gibbs. It's 100% on Gibbs.
It's 100% Gibbs because of the scrutiny around that pick.
Yep.
Because that was the moment that Brad Holmes said, we're winning now.
Brad Holmes said, I do what I want. That's what he said.
I mean, he did. He basically said, F your mocks and F your positional value. Because this was my guy. And so he put his eggs in that basket.
He did the table slap. Hard for Gibbs.
He did. Yes, he did.
He elbowed Campbell in the nuts for this pick. He went crazy.
He warned us at his pre-draft press conference and said, listen, if he's a good player and we take him, nobody's going to care where he was drafted. Well, it ends up that guy was drafted at 12. Mm-hmm. So he better be the Todd Gurley that you compared him to in your pre-draft conference.
That's what we're waiting for. Exactly. Alvin Kamara's nothing to sneeze at. That's a big-time player. If he don't look like that, I'm going to have some problems, bro.
Yeah, but right now, we're excited about it.
Yes. Smile.
Okay. Yeah,
good job, Brad Holmes. We love you, Brad Holmes. Yes.
Right now, it's okay. Right now, it's good. And we expect, listen, I think Jahmyr is going to be an impact player. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to have his stamp very clearly on this team. But we want to know what you think. What are your expectations for these rookies in 2023? What are your expectations for the Detroit Lions in 2023? And why is it the NFC Championship game? No, I'm just kidding. But at the end of the day, like, that is where we're going. Listen, we've said we've got at least 3 guys, potentially 4, that are going to make impacts day one. Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam LaPorta, Brian Branch. Hendon Hooker is a wash. He needs to just get healthy, and he needs to learn. And the Lions, they need to win. Mm-hmm. That's the end of the story. That's the end of the script. Period. The end. Win football games. Yes. That's all that matters going into 2023. And we will be here for all of it. He is Eric. I am AJ. This is your favorite Detroit sports show, Beyond the Box. We will be back live with you Thursday night. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you've subscribed to our YouTube channel. Smash that bell for notifications so that we can continue to build the best Detroit sports community there is on the internet. We'll see you live Thursday at 9 o'clock.
Peace out.